be new, some of it you might know. Feel free to ask questions if any of these concepts are just like, what's that thing I've never heard of? Um, but also, I wanted to mention, if you look at my panels in my channel and stuff, I am serious about the tier 2 stuff. Like the tier 2, I will help you learn how to code if you are so inclined and want those resources. Um, just throw me $10 and I will teach you all these things. Nah, there are a lot of free resources out there. That is more like if you want like one-on-one tutoring with me so that I can teach you how to think like a programmer, as opposed to just learn these things. It's more than that. It's about the kind of mentality you want, the kind of soft skills you need, the overall climate of the industry, stuff like that. I will discuss all of that, probably for free at some point also. But again, if someone wants one-on-one coaching with me, that's tier 2. Tier 3, just I don't know what to do about tier 3. Tier 1, you get the cool emotes and stuff. Hooray! But yeah, just having been gaming for so long since I was a baby. Not a baby, I was 6. I played my first console when I was 6. Um, and that was kind of my way to relate to other people. I take that back. My way of relating to men was the fact that I played video games and I played more video games than they did, and I knew more games than they did. So it's just kind of like, wait a minute. I joke a lot about going back onto Hinge and being like, okay, so if you can tell me who Darren Korb is without Googling his name, you should talk to me. But if you can't do that, don't even talk to me. So, um, though at this point, I feel like a lot of people know who he is. He's just that big in the industry. He's fantastic. He is wonderful. He is a completely amazing human being. Let me very quickly change this to the proper category. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this for now. How is everyone? I am going off. I'm having so much fun right now. My streams are not polished. My streams do not have super high production value. They just kind of exist. That is what I like. Because I want people to realize that streaming is accessible. You went and did dishes in your back? Welcome back. Streaming is very accessible, and anybody who wants to learn how to broadcast not just on Twitch, but on YouTube, on Facebook, on whatever the heck you want, it's worth having a conversation and asking people like, why do you stream? Why do you do it? Are you trying to monetize? Are you trying to make a living out of it? Or are you after something else? I think that's an important question to ask yourself before you decide, oh, I'm going to do this. Because for me, it was, I need a new hobby and I wanted to learn things. I struggle. Okay, let me read the chat. Buffalo's like, content is more important than polish anyway. And then Christopher's saying, I struggle with that, the polish versus the content. And then Buffalo's like, great production means nothing if the content is bad, just like at CBS. Ooh, we got some zingers out there. Okay. So I would say that content matters more than anything because for me personally, I like the small fire chat or fireside chat environment where you can actually interact with the streamer because that is what you're getting that you don't get from TV. The fact that you can interact with someone and feel heard and acknowledged when you're talking to them. Like I just need to figure out how many to or figure out how to many stuff look pretty and viewer engagement stuffs. Yeah. Mm. I need to move this. I hear you. Da, 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 da. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you on that. Um You're fine. Take your time. There is no need to apologize in this space. Everybody's valid. I don't know why my phone is blowing up, and I'm a little concerned that it is blowing up, but I'm just okay. I'm not gonna look at my notifications so that I don't have a panic attack. Whew, boy, make stuff look pretty. You get sidetracked by looking at puppies online. Aww. That's the thing, though. It's okay to just need a break from stuff. It's really hard to ask for like 2, 3 hours of someone's time on your freaking face, you know? And that is just a matter of public speaking skills. For example, this comes up in academia because, again, I wanted tenure. I wanted to be a professor in university once upon a time. And this is as close as I'm going to get to educating people, which, might have turned out for the better because if you think about it, if you're in higher education, then the information you're allowed to disseminate is sort of restricted and behind the paywall, and it's all classist. Ha! I talked about this with a couple of my friends the other day, where I was like, if you pepper your language with very, very big SAT words, and you're trying to educate someone or like a different crowd, it's kind of pretentious and it's not a great look and it's kind of classist. If you do not make your material accessible to someone who does not have the same educational background as you, what are you doing? Like, who are you teaching? Who is this for? You're preaching to the choir. Like anybody who's been to college and taken, there's a term for that in social work? Tell me more, please. If you can pull it up, by all means, let us know. Giving power to the language. Oh? What is that? See, now we're learning today. This is a preview of March 5th. Very anti-blackness. Yes, that makes sense. Because who do you think in America has the least access to education and opportunity? Black people. Bam. So if you're not, well, I'll talk about that. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Um, it's not a, how you say, what's the word? Something quota, the affirmative action. Remember how everybody was all like, affirmative action, now my kids can't get into college because of blah blah blah, because that kind of bullshit that people talk about. Wait, a lot of people in the gaming community do that. Really? Grammar police, colloquial haters, etc. Yeah, it's tone policing, isn't it? To an extent, isn't that tone policing? Now we're getting into all of this, social work theory and stuff. I hope the rest of chat's just having a good time learning. Give power to the language. It's also gatekeeping. Oh, you mean when you say give power to the language, do you mean like they weaponize the language against you? Yeah, it's gatekeeping. I think gatekeeping is another form of ism. Hello there, I have no idea how I came here, but hey, new people, I just woke up after lurking in someone's stream. How are you? Welcome, Tina Art. It's nice to see you. You might have come from either Kid Rennie's stream or D'Angelo Murillo's stream. Hold on, I'm gonna move spaces so I can figure out how to join on call with you. Okay. All right, one second. I need to get into my DMs, but people are messaging me that I don't want to deal with this right now. Okay. Interesting. All right. Let me really quickly, one second. Hang on one moment. Is that good? Okay. When you say finish Hades, do you mean have I finished streaming Hades altogether? Or have I beaten a run? Or have I gotten through the entire story? Because to answer all those questions, chat got me started on this topic of anti-blackness. And then I figured, you know what, this is more important than Hades right now. So we're talking about all these things while people are hanging out, vibing on their Wednesday afternoon. um, but I will continue playing Hades. Trust me, I play a lot of Hades. I will go back to Hades. Have I beaten the story? I have not. I know about the spoilers regarding you know who, but I have not seen the dialogue myself because here's my thing. I love video games. However, I will spoil myself for a bunch of them. Reason being that, what's the word? For narrative purposes, I kind of want to know what's going on, and I don't want someone else to spoil the game for me. So, what games do I stream? Darkest Dungeon, Megami Tensei 2, Hades. I started trying out Hammer Ting, which is early access on Epic. I was interested in that one because I'm not playing a whole lot of, management games. We have Lo-Fi Stardew Sundays, which is like a new initiative that I began, and D'Angelo is going to be joining me on that one once I figure things out with Angelus. So the Sunday thing, that was just because we were all, or at least me and Ange were experiencing burnout. Thank you so much for the follow. The Stardew Sundays Lo-Fi, that's what the Chill Hop banner is for, and it's kind of like a way for us all to decompress and get ready for the work week. It's just Sunday mornings, you come, you vibe with us, you unload, you share good vibes, you share stressed vibes. It's just basically like a mental health check in. And it's. Oh, conference call, so I had to step away. You're fine. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a new thing that we started on Sundays. I don't know how often it's going to be. If it's going to be every week or every other week, we'll figure it out as we go. We've done one episode of it, and it was just me and Ange, which means we had two empty slots. And I was like, oh, D'Angelo seems really cool. So I invited him on, and we have to plan that all out. Um, yeah, it's. We ended up talking a lot about Twitch culture actually during our first Lo-Fi Sunday stream. I think the VOD's still up. But basically, I don't know anything about. But now I can speak on stuff you want me on call. Please, hop on call. I can talk about Twitch crap any other time. I am calling you in DMs, Christopher, so you just have to join. Please, please join. Where are you? Uh, there you are.
Oh, can you hear me?
I hear you. Can chat hear you? Because I see you piping in the audio mixer, so they should be able to hear you. But I have to double check, make sure you're boosted up.
Hold
Okay.
on.
You're fine. You're coming through. No one in chat has said that they can hear you, but I assume they can. If they can't, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. I'm gonna change the title of the stream. Okay, title is gonna be Ren and Christopher talk about. Is it a little facetious if I say Ren and Christopher talk about racism?
I mean, kind of. I mean, not even facetious, but just like that's just it. It is what it is. That's what we're doing.
Okay,
I heard a voice. I am the voice.
I
Voice
mean,
voice.
it is Black History Month. We might as well go there, but we can go there every month of the year. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Christopher could be louder. Let me boost it up a bit. All right. Let me know how that sounds after they speak a bit more.
Hello, hello, hello.
So, what would you like to talk about?
Yeah, so you just like brought up like that really good like there's so much gatekeeping in like these sort of like smaller sort of countercultural communities. And it's so interesting because like there's such organic safe spaces, like it's just where people of that counterculture that subculture can just be. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the same time it's like a double-edged sword because then people will gatekeep and then try to keep new people from coming in. And that just it just wilds me out because I'm just like, how is anybody on the internet supposed to, how are we supposed to feel safe, like
Uh-huh.
it always seems like someone has to vet you for you to like get your way into a community. But also like even the way that like communities are like even in the way that like communities can be made to be made safe spaces at the time when they could be made ultra safe for everybody,
Hold on
there's
one
always like
moment. I'm still
pushback.
being told that you're on the quiet side. I have you at max decibels, and you're still kind of quiet. So I don't know if that's a matter of you being far from your microphone or.
Here, I'll turn my how about that?
Oh
I'll turn
my
my microphone all the way
god! That was too much. All right, that's perfect though. I brought you down on the slider. I think we're good now.
up. Okay.
Thank you. That's
Yes.
perfect. Now you're perfect.
Okay.
I mean, you're
Yeah,
always
no.
perfect, but I mean, in terms of how I can hear you, now you're perfect.
Oh my god, see, look at that like gentle flex you just did. I see you. But yeah, it's just like, when gaming communities, and I'm just gonna speak to gaming communities, like when those moments and those communities could be made ultra safe, there's like some sort of like pushback. And like the moment that really comes to my mind is Miles Morales. Like when Miles Morales was a concept and people were like, oh, Childish Gambino should be like Spider-Man, like Childish Gambino got death threats to his door for the idea of playing a fictional character,
Donald
which to
Glover
me,
was sent death threats?
yes, like they actually like sent him like, so you should kill yourself, like kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, one, like content warning, very triggering, but like two, how is a person ever going to feel safe in this world if we don't allow them space? Like, think about it even in like older terms, right? Like I forget her name, I can never pronounce it, but it's the black woman who was on the original Star Trek that then inspired like the first black astronaut.
Are
If
you
that woman
talking
never took,
about the actress who played Uhura?
yes, and if
Let me
she
look up
never
her
took
name.
that,
Let me look
and
up
if
her
she
name.
had never taken that role, like yes, we would still have black women at space at some point, but the timeline between that point and that like actualization of black women in space, that would have been much longer.
I believe
But
you're referring to Nichelle Nichols.
I am referring to Nichelle Nichols. Yes, bless her heart. You know, and it's just like how like there's so much gatekeeping on gaming communities when really gaming communities were fostered and made as places for us to feel safe. Like I remember being a kid and going to the arcade and seeing many other people that looked like me playing like Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, and that was like my first fighting game, and I became
Mm-hmm.
like really big into fighting games not because I was quote unquote good, but because I had people to hang out with, and that was a way to like break bread.
Question, do you want to swap over to Zoom so that people can see both of us?
Ooh, sure.
Let me get Zoom going real fast. One second. Okay. Bear with us, everybody, while we get this running. And then if I invite, how do I invite from here? Ah, here we go. And
Ooh, are
then
you sending me a Zoom link?
I am sending you a Zoom link in DMs. Hopefully that's your DM
Yes.
and not the wrong person.
It's me. Here, I'll see you on the DM or on Zoom then.
Okay.
Let's see.
See?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
See, each one reach one.
All right.
Um,
So, right. Gatekeeping in video games.
it's just like it's so outrageous because like video gaming communities and like spaces where gaming happens are usually like they're usually already safe. Like that's the whole idea. Like, hey, let's all get a whole bunch of people together and play Super Smash, right? Like in the
Are they
time like
safe though? Because I mean, like, anytime I go into a public server, you're going to have gross, weird men shout you down.
and that's the thing, like the way that they're supposed to be safe spaces is we're supposed to be leaving all those, and when we come into a safe space like a gaming community, the idea is that at time you come to gaming community so you can leave the stress of the world behind you,
Right.
but there's also people who are bringing the cycle of their traumas with them into that space. So yes, you know, if I were a cisgendered male-bodied person, I could be getting away from, you know, me being a black person, my terrible home life, but I could also be bringing with the cycle of me, like, you know, everything that's happened to me as a black man, you know, and that's just me being as a cisgendered person, me being queer, you know, I have to remember at times, like there are times I need to leave my trauma at the door
Mm-hmm.
coming into a gaming community. And then there's actually times when that trauma actually brings us all together, right? Because there are times when I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm really going through something today. And you've been there for moments, you know, in my Discord, and you know, vice versa, where like I'm going through something, and like the people who've been in that gaming community can like be with you and say like, hey, what are you going through? Like, can we help you process this? And that's the glory of a gaming community. But when they bring all that trash with them, it just makes it worse.
And, I think all the people who bring that, again, toxic hypermasculinity, it's because they use gaming as an escapism tool, but they have no one to talk to about these things, and they just lash out at anyone who's like in the crosshairs. And that's why there's all that myth about video games perpetuating violence. It's not that the games are, exacerbating it, it's just a venue through which they can, articulate those feelings.
And for me too, I also asked the question of like, what about this game brought this person to violence? Because 8 times out of 10, it's not the game itself that brought this person to violence. It's what's happening to them, you know?
Yeah.
A person who has always been put down by the world and hasn't necessarily like they've been, you know, disregarded and really been treated negatively, that will eventually come out. A video game is just serves as the inspiration.
Right, and
You
that
know,
goes into just that concept, the observed fact of mental health wherein someone who has been abused may very well become an abuser themselves. That's
Very
the
much so.
cycle of abuse and trauma.
Very much so, because they've never, one, they've never, processed what they did when it comes to the person that they abused as a way that that was a negative, moment. And two, like, and this is like you were just saying earlier about cancel culture, that cancel culture doesn't really help us because no one told them about themselves, for lack of a better term. Like, you have like somebody who is causing trauma to another person, like, you can't just cancel them. You have to let them know they fucked up. You have to let them know they did something wrong by you, and also just like, hey, I'm going to tell you what you did. I'm also not going to help you become like that. Hope you become a better person for that, but I don't owe you raising you for that. If that makes any sense.
Right, and I apologize for my expression. That comes from the fact that very early on to me kind of putting dipping my toe back into streaming was because I encountered someone, a streamer, who they didn't even do anything to me, but I saw what they were putting out there into the world, and I thought, no, I'm not letting this stand. This was someone who liked one of my tweets or whatever, and I was like, oh, someone's in my notifications. I'm gonna go check them out. I go onto their page, and the first thing I see is them slinging around the R slur. They are calling people retarded. That is what they said. And me being me, I should have just I take that back. People told me I should block them. What I did instead was I quote retweeted them and I was like, look, this is not okay. And you should not do this. This is a really shitty meme. Because he called it a meme. He's like, don't get upset with this person because it's just a meme. And I was like, first of all, OP did not use that word. You used that word as his white knight, so that's not okay. And then I find out 5 days later because he's not showing up in my notifications. I just go back to him and be like, oh, there's a notification. He quote retweeted it and it's like, normally I vouch for social justice, but this is such like special snowflake bullshit. Cancel me. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God. So this is like this is like my one thing. Then this is like a tool that I always remind people. If somebody's being offensive and they try to encroach it in humor, and like I just say this just to say it, honestly, you need to call that person out because
I
one,
did.
it wasn't funny. That's not funny.
I
That's
did call them
actually,
out.
and I'm so glad that you did, right? Because like he needs to know that's not funny. Also, too, like when people call it social justice, I really hate when people call it social justice. This is just the world as the way as it should be. Like there is no like it's not like a concept. Like
Samar is 22 people.
being a normal human being is just like that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like you're supposed to be accepting and like inclusive of people. Like that's actually the good part. That's
Let
where
me
you're
just
like quote
very
unquote
quickly
normal.
slow this down for everybody who just hopped in. Hi, we are talking about racism and gatekeeping in the gaming community because Christopher and I are people of color and they're black. So, like, we just got into the fact that there was that one person in my notifications who saw, like, special snowflake, cancel me. And so, again, Christopher, by all means, offer your opinion.
Yeah, and so my thing is like one, people when people try to like encroach something that they say that's really awful in humor, like ha ha ha, I was just trying to make a joke. Oh my God, it's a meme. One, that reads to me like one, you're just very tone deaf, and two, you're trying to use what you did and sort of in a way that you knew that you would get quote unquote canceled as a way to like bump up your popularity. And to me, that just seems grimy. That just seems super grimy to just throw out the whole like way you would regard a human being just for your own popularity. That seems
Listen, I just wanted to see what was up with this person, this particular streamer. I went to their channel. I looked at their about. I now know this person's first name. I did a video tweet at them, and I don't know if that man ever watched it. This person is 7 years my junior, and I told them, I'm not here to cancel you. I'm here to hold you accountable. So there's that whole thing. I can show it to you later. Sim knows exactly what I'm talking about because I was really butthurt about it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, because for me, when things like that happen, like when people are trying to like trying to dip their toe into social justice and like really trying to work it out for their popularity, I kind of can get really blunt about this sort of things,
Hmm.
and I call those Rachel Dolezal cases. Like you really were just trying to blend in, and really trying to like make yourself populable and make yourself popular for other people, and it backfired, and now you need to be held really accountable for that because you're doing harm. What you did was harm to somebody and
Can
you
I?
thought it was funny.
I'm sorry, I need to explain how much this annoyed me because I respected the person that they were quote unquote trying to defend. This is one of Jacksepticeye's white knights. That's what drives me insane about it. That's why I'm just like, look, look. If you are going to quote retweet Jacksepticeye and try and defend him against people who are rightfully angry that not even rightfully angry, I just take that back. People who are critiquing the fact that he's using fancy font. First of all, this person obviously did not understand why there's been this push against fancy font. Are you familiar with that fancy font stuff?
Mm-mm.
So it's when people go on Twitter and use these characters, this font that looks
Oh,
pretty,
like
and
the fancy script, whatever.
those do not render well with screen readers. And the reason being is because the screen reader is going to go letter by letter saying, this is the font face, this is the font type, this is the font such and such, and just read out the entire thing to the point where you can't understand what is being said. And I have a bookmark. I'm just going to show everybody right now. This is what happens when you use quote unquote fancy font with a screen reader. Let me get into my Twitter 1 second. This is important for accessibility reasons, and to ignore this is ableist. That's the thing. Hecka, I understand that you did not know. Don't worry, I will. You'll know by the end of this. Let me find the bookmark
And
here.
the thing too that's really important, especially like with communities and anti-blackness, racism, is like we also in the ways that we have to like have accountability culture, we also have to make space for people being able to change their opinion
Yes.
because that is crucial, right? Because right now in this cancel culture, people are feeling like, okay, like I was wrong, but I wasn't also given space to grow. And that is the other half of accountability is like, can this person motivate and inspire themselves by learning that they might have done something to really hurt people to make themselves a better person? Because I'm going to be really clutch and tell you there are many ways that you can help a person, but that is not all your work. Like some people need to be able to do work on their own just because like that's just life.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did want to come back and talk about was the whole giving power to the language kind of thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is like a term that we use in social work. And it's the idea that when we explain something, that we always use like words that are act like classes, words that are very things that you would not know. Like if I said like noblesse oblige, right? Knowing that, I have a duty because I know it. And, that's French, but that also comes from higher learning. And giving power to the language, if you're approaching somebody, from an anti-blackness approach, is giving power to the language doesn't give space to all the ways that people speak. And I want to kind of come back to like people who are first immigrating into the United States, who are just learning English, how they speak, and how a person who already speaks English is going to be inherently different, but the subject matter of what they're trying to say to you is exactly what it would be in English if they just had the words and the facilities to do so. But when we
Right.
use higher language, it it embarrasses people, it shames people, they actually pushes them away from wanting to speak. They will speak with people of their community because people will understand them and not hold them to like, oh, why can't you speak my language? Well, I speak a language, you just don't get it.
See, that's the thing that I have struggled with, to be honest with you, about which register to use, like what level of formality to use. And that is because, like, on my professional Twitter, if I'm in a bad mood, I will bust out the SAT words. I will do that. I will go there.
See?
Um, However, if I am trying to connect with someone, especially coming from the gaming community, not knowing their academic background, not knowing what they're into, then I'm going to talk as if, I'm going to try and be as colloquial as possible. And unfortunately, I have come to the point where I keep saying, like, oh, I bro it up. No, I'm trying to be colloquial so that people understand, where we're at. We're on the same page. And that's what makes it so hard because then I have to bridge the two spheres that I come from, the academia and then the gaming community.
And you see, it's really the intersectionality that's just such a key because like my story is like I'm a black person. I'm from the South. Like I'm originally from North Carolina, higher ed educated, social worker, but I also have really a lot of ties to ballroom, and ballroom being like the House of Ninja, Vogue, like many of those things. So I live in three giant circles, and there's like the sweet spot in the middle
Mhm.
that is the art of code switching. That is the art of code switching for me to
Right.
be that person, to be this person, to be this person. And there are many times, especially if you catch me streaming, especially last night, like I can be, me and my best friend are streaming, me being a queer person, him being cisgender male, and I can, talk to him and be like, "Ooh, Miss Thing," like, "Ooh, you just got your ass beat," you know what I mean? But like, if you watched this, you know exactly what that was. But like being able to speak to him in that language, I knew he got me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And being able to code switch like that, I know you
Yeah.
get me.
Right.
And there are times when I'm able to code switch with that higher language. But even then, I try, whenever I'm going to speak to you or if I'm just speaking out like publicly, I never try to speak in a higher language kind of way because if I'm going to give information out to people, I want everybody to be able to understand me.
Right. And the reason why I have not been doing that is because I felt so threatened by the gaming community lately that I'm just like, look, I know what's going on, but also this is where I come from. So don't mess with me because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Like you don't know who I am. Don't.
And that's also a thing too on the other side of that sword, the double-edged sword, is that in the gaming community, a lot of people will throw out those higher words to kind of say like, "Oh, I'm this person in the community," or "I'm this person here in the community." When as great as all those things are, we all have to remember that we're all kind of here because society sucks. Like we're
Yeah.
all here as a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all just sort of hanging out because we want some other place to be because this current place is trash. You know, and coming into gaming communities, especially when I used to come back in the gaming communities back in the 90s, I'm that old. Um,
I was
and
born in
people
the
would,
90s.
when people were like using those kind of words and using them at me, I would just sort of like, I would kind of just shut down and just say, like, okay, and like, that doesn't bring me any closer to you. When I hear you. I totally get that you're doing something super cool and awesome, but how does this relate to our friendship? Like, how are we getting
Mm-hmm.
anywhere? And thinking about too, like in the ways of gatekeeping and how people can have access and accessibility, the people who can't have the or don't have the access to higher ed, who come into the gaming community, already feel like they're at a lower rung because they're like, listen, I play Animal Crossing on a Switch. I'm lucky to have said Switch. You all are talking to me about mods and whatever time traveling and all this other stuff, and I really just I just found a place to hang out. i'm
Mm-hmm.
i'm carrying all this weight and this trauma of the world around me. I just got here, and now I don't
Right.
even know if I can get into the
See,
party.
that was something that also bothered me when I kind of like slipped into Smash Ultimate because immediately people were like, "You need to watch this. You need to watch this. If you want to get good at this game, you have to watch this." I was like, "Hold on, first of all, I play with items on and I'm here to just I have like a friend who's 9 years old who I want him to have a good time. So don't come at me being like, you're not a pro gamer. Get the fuck out." I'm like, whoa, okay. Didn't need that hostility, but all right.
And it just baffles me. It baffles me so much that people gatekeep on the gaming community, because how the fuck are we ever going to relax and be free of the world around us if we're actively finding ways to kick
You know
people
what? I'm
out?
just gonna put this out there right now. I have seen gatekeeping in Super Giant Games' server. I told the moderator, so it's been handled, but I will say, even Super Giant's community, there are people who are trying to gatekeep in there. And there are people who are like, Am, should I? What happens if I turn on God mode? And I wrote this entire thing like, you're allowed to write God mode because the developers put God mode in to make the game accessible to literally everyone. Why are you guys trying to make it sound like people have to play without God mode on? It's
I
not,
play
you know.
like I play Control with the I even play Control with the God mode on because Control is a absolutely beautiful game,
Mhm.
and dying takes me out of the atmosphere. And I'm a
Right.
person like my favorite choices of media are things like Twin Peaks. Like I love 80s like
Mhm.
cults kind of stuff. And for me to have God mode on, I get to have more photo mode time, and I get to take more pictures of Jesse Faden, and I get to do really cool things
See?
and interpret someone's art differently. And that's what I like about video gaming, because it's like being at a museum. Everyone can look at the same video game and get a different piece of art out. Like video gaming can be therapy because it can heal something in you if you like process it concurrently with what you're
Right.
doing.
And
But
to
when
your
you
question earlier about like, do people still use photo mode? I spent so much time in Borderlands 3 just kind of like looking at the filters, being like, oh my God, this is so pretty. You can look at the assets and everything, look at the guns and all that. I'm like, ooh, you can customize them. It's like, yes, Borderlands 3, the writing is nowhere near as good as when Anthony Birch was on the team, but there's so much to love about it in like different disparate aspects, you know?
and it's also just like, those moments where there's photo mode also lets us be, on the developer team. And I loved it so much in Cyberpunk 2077. Controversial comment. I love that game, by the way, bugs and all included. But like, I'm able to create a character that looks in me in a society that I really love sci-fi. Like, I
Hmm.
love Blade. I've watched Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 as many more times than I am old. Like, but when I take photo mode and I see my character in it and I'm taking photos, I'm like, that's me. I'm in a video
Right.
game. Like, I'm participating. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here. And it makes me feel good because I could be out in the world doing anything. Like, I could be meditating, I could be doing yoga. I'm not a stillness kind of person to relax, but me driving along the streets of Night City and like stopping at the Mac and Cheeses or going clothes shopping in a video game actually really does something for me.
Hmm.
And I had to get for a while, I had to get through the whole gatekeeping of the video game community because, people were like, oh, would always come back and they'd be like, oh, you get enough queer representation in like Fist of the North Star. Like, you get a lot of queer people in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, we don't want to hear anything. And I'm like, okay, there's queer representation, but none of those people are me. Like, I look different. I act different for a queer person. I'm actually a pretty antisocial queer person.
I'm trying to
I want to
remember the last time I saw a black person in anime, and I think it was Carol and Tuesday.
I, and anime has been a thing that I've kind of given up on for a really long time, just because one, I can't really connect with a lot of anime that's coming out now, and then two, just in terms of representation, it's not giving me what I want to see.
Right.
It's I think things have really gotten greater, and anime is in different accesses, but it's
Hmm.
also like I'm waiting for something that feels like queer representation that isn't
Right.
served to me on a platter.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to have a Schitt's Creek kind of moment as a queer representation. I want like queer representation as like the best friend from Buffy. Like, I want to have a Willow moment.
It's like, did we really have to get queer representation from Steven Universe were like aliens and stuff like that? Like, can't we have people who are queer at this point?
Yeah,
In
yeah. Or
animation, I love Steven Universe. I love Steven Universe. But there's still the fact that the queer rep, a lot of it is just they're aliens.
and it's just to always be regarded as other, and to just
Yeah.
hear like just to be continued to be regarded as other. It gives to me like it gives me parameters. I can continue to be regarded as other if I continue to engage with this media, or I could go do something else where I am regarded as a main character. I have something to say. I'm here. And it really, really, especially just talking about the whole gatekeeping and the in video gaming community, the reason that I stopped playing video games, like, I was a Tekken person for a really long time. um Many old school fighting games, and I quit a lot of those games because of the gatekeeping. They would always tell me like, there isn't a gay person should be in this, like, it shouldn't be playing something else, like there's some other game for you, like what about Pac-Man or like Mrs. Pac-Man, like that's more of your jam. And I'm like, you're an asshole, actually. You're an actual asshole, because I use charge characters. I'm a guile user, and I like to have fun, and I did pretty well as a guile, back in the day when people
Hmm.
were watching frame rates and stuff. People, instead of acknowledging that I was an okay guile at what I did, they attacked me for my sexuality. And that's I didn't like I wasn't I'm queer pressing buttons, but I'm not like, and for lack of a better term, I'm not sucking a dick as a character in a fighting game. Like, I'm just not. I'm just not. I'm beating your ass and you're mad about it. And I hear that you're mad about it. And rather than me feed into your anger, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go because you're holding all this anger about me, and I'm not gonna hold that in for my day.
Yeah.
You know? And I stopped playing fighting games. I no longer
Right.
play fighting games. It's just, and good, and kudos to Sonic Fox doing what he's doing now, because Sonic Fox, is like, for lack of a better term, beating asses left and right, and people cannot beat that kid. And I love that. I love just watching his matches because he's so good,
Hmm.
you know. And I love that. I love that. I love that he's seeing, as a furry, he's part of a video gaming team. He's a really great fighting person. He's also in college. and that's his identity. That's what we should be making space for.
Right.
When we gatekeep, it like puts off. I feel like I call it like a Terminator effect. Like we're only putting off the Terminator for
Mm-hmm.
very long, because very eventually, like Sonic Fox, there is going to be a Renaissance person who is going to be queer, check all the boxes, and just be unstoppable.
Right, and I had no idea that you used to play fighting games. And Aether, who was in chat earlier, I want to bring him on because what am I saying? They're Afro-Latino, as you saw earlier, but chat wasn't aware
Hmm.
of it, and they're quite young, not a minor, but they are very young, and I get the sense that they don't have a whole lot of space or people supporting them. And that is why I want to bring them onto the channel so they have a place where they can express their own sentiments and their own passion about the fighting game community, especially since they're really good. They are really good at the game.
And it's also like, whenever that happens, it just takes it really. Whenever that would happen to me, like Ren, it would take the wind out of my sails. And I remember I got I got a Dreamcast at one point, and I
Hmm.
started getting King of Fighters games.
Right.
And King of Fighters games were that's like my tea. Like I am a technical projectile. Like let's
Hmm.
slow down this fight and make it a moment. And I figured that out, and I started playing every KOF up until like 2003,
Hmm.
and then I just stopped because I would organize fighting game tournaments at my college, which was an HBCU, and people would be like, they would like try to throw humor at me, but they'd be like, what's your gay ass doing here? Like, what's your queer ass doing here? Like, oh wow. Like,
Wow.
oh wow, look at you. You think you know Terry Bogard. And I'm sitting here like, I've played Terry Bogard in Fatal Fury games. Like, I remember Terry Bogard from the Fatal Fury OVA, sis. Like, first and foremostly, catch the receipts, because I've been here for quite some time, and like they would just do that to me. One, I was organizing these fighting game tournaments, and two, they would just kind of shut me out of my own event. To which
That's
I would like,
awful.
at one point I was just like, you know what, this whole shit's canceled. This whole shit's canceled because I don't know how to play nice, and I'm not going to be here for this. You know.
I mean, like the whole, my own experience with fighting games, I've played Soul Calibur 2, 3, bit of 4, but then even before all of that, I played the original N64 Smash. And I never got into the competitive scene because you know how Melee had the wave dashing, all those complex techniques and all that crap. I'm just like,
I just want to have fun.
I just want to have fun. I just want to have fun. I just want to run around, grab the Pokeball, throw it at you, and then you'll be like, God damn it, you got the Pokeball first. And I'm like, yeah, so now you're screwed. you
And,
know?
and those are the moments, like video games are supposed to be fun. Like I'm trying to get into more like Souls like games, so I just bought Code Vein.
Wait, wait,
Um,
before you go into Code Vein, can I
but
just say, like, I don't understand why people are so no items, blah, blah, blah. This is the competitive scene. I'm like, if you can't play with items on, how good are you really?
and also
Right?
like I get that people want to like play a video game to be competitive. I also don't understand that video game only solely being competitive, because when you play Super Smash with people with items, and it's like 8 people with items, that is nothing but joy.
It's so
You know,
much fun.
it is
So
nothing
much
but
fun.
joy to like see people, or like do like theme smashes, right? Like everybody
Yeah.
pick a female, everybody pick somebody from this game or something. Like that's what video games are supposed to be. Like,
Yeah.
it's supposed to bring you together. Like, oh, I'm gonna pick this character. Oh, who's that? Oh,
Like
that's Ness
I
from
was
Mother. Like,
telling
oh, blah blah
Kyle,
blah.
I was telling Kyle the other day, I was just like, yo, when I got frickin' Melee, Fountain of Dreams, instead of playing competitively, whatever everybody else was doing, I would put Marth and Zelda in their like white wedding palette, and I would pose them and take photos. I take wedding photos. That's what I
Yeah,
did as
and
a
it's
kid. But
it's
back
so
to
cute,
Code Vein.
but that's the platform. That's no tea, no shade, no pink lemonade. I think that's what Nintendo wants you to do. They want you to get in there and celebrate their game, enjoy their game, because and this is my thing too, and this is what my thing was with Cyberpunk and people wanting to come for CD Project Red. A lot of people worked for a really hard time to put that project in front of you. And these people had babies, they had relatives being born and died, they
I
had
wanted to
breakups,
ask you your
marriages.
thoughts about
Like,
the like gamer entitlement.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I absolutely cannot stand gamer entitlement, because somebody went. This is my thing, and this is my thing with CD Projekt Red. And for those people who worked on that game for so long and had to deal with the gaming community with those bugs, they all deserve medals. Like those are all like war veterans at this point because these people have like gotten death threats to their homes. Like they're like coming at them. The voice actors have been like snubbed. Like Keanu Reeves is having a moment. You know, the only Grimes, the who'd worked on the soundtrack for that as well, also had a moment. People found out that like ASAP Rocky had developed a track for it in private, and I'm like getting like misty eyed because like people work really hard on that stuff. Like that takes so much work to
What
render
they
water,
what they say.
and like
That's the thing, right? Because people in the game industry, they celebrate no matter what the game is when someone completes a project, even if the game's crap, they know how hard you worked on it and they understand. The only people who appreciate game developers are other game developers because they are like the more you get into game development, the more you hate games,
yeah.
which
And
is
it's
really
also
sad.
just and it's also just like, me as a consumer,
Mhm.
just thinking about this world of 2021, I can buy a game and just download it and I can sit there and I can play it. And I remember back in the 90s, like when I would have to like saved up $70, I've got to go to a Babbage's or an EB Games and hope I've got enough trading credit on a card and I've got cards with me and the guys at the counter, and all of a sudden I know Final Fantasy 9 is out and I want the strategy guide to go with it, and like I'm getting all those things. And the kid from me in the 90s is still the same adult here in the 2020s. Like I really appreciate somebody's hard work for that, for somebody to type out a story that, and that's really the thing, is like video games are really just artful human stories. Someone took an aspect of human life, their trauma, something they might have actually gone through themselves, was brave enough maybe not even to process it but to hold their trauma while also developing a game, like, and then to like just sort of like go like with arms outstretched and like say, hey, this is my project and I really hope you love it. That, like, I cannot do anything but celebrate somebody for that. Like, for instance, let's talk about Supergiant and I'll talk about Transistor, right? Like, I'm a person that every time I finish Transistor I cry because of that song in circles. Gets me because I know what it's like to be in love with somebody in circles. And even for all the issues or whatever of pro gaming with Transistor, I had a lot of fun with it. I related to Red, in the times
I
of my
also
life
relate
when
to Red. I relate to her so much.
like in the times of my life when I felt like someone stole my voice, or in the times when I wanted to sing or I could hum and that was all that I could muster musically, out of my body.
Yeah.
And I really resonated with that. I can't find a fault in a game developer for that, because that took to make that relatable to millions of people, and me being one of millions of people who play video gaming. For me to know that there's somebody else out there who can connect with that song and we can make community over that, that is art. That's power.
And I think I mentioned before how there was Ninja Theory's Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. That trailer they put out of all of these people who played the game and said, I finally understand my loved one's PTSD after playing this game. After God knows how many years of not being able to communicate to someone. I don't understand mental health disorders. I don't understand what it's mean to be depressed. Like, the fact that games can bridge people who otherwise do not experience that, that's the engagement, that's the interactivity, that is the connection, that is the human element. Why are people gatekeeping when we need these experiences, when we need this ability to communicate these ideas to one another?
Ren, you actually said it like in a way, like that's the way. I'm gonna totally agree with you and add on one little thing. That's the way of connecting human people. That's our Rosetta Stone. That's how we all speak the same language.
It's having
Is
fun.
feeling.
It's game.
Is
It's
feeling. It's
games.
feeling. It's games. It's fun. It's sadness. It's happiness. It's ambivalence. It's being like, what the fuck is that giant dildo on the screen moment, and sharing that screenshot with people, and like people like recognizing that, and it's glorious. But when you gatekeep, you keep us from being, when people are gatekeeping, they're keeping us from having those conversations. they're
Right.
they're perpetuating cycles.
They are projecting their identity onto a piece of media and trying to hoard it for themselves because once you introduce all the quote unquote normies to it, where does that leave them and their insecurities?
And it's so funny because people it's so funny when you it's so funny you mentioned that, because it's actually what I hold in my head when I hear about gatekeeping, is that people always want to feel special. People always want to feel special and amazing, and it's great, but at times people can come kind of narrow-minded in that sort of specialness, and just say I instead of we, you know? And we can be special and we can learn new things. You know, like how many people can you share a common interest with over, you know, Hades, you know? And then when you get to the one place, I forget her name, but she's a chef, you know,
Eurydice?
um, Eurydice, you know, Eurydice, and you know, you're talking about Hades, and coming to find out you also like cooking, you know, and now there's people that you know will want to talk to you about food, and like, or maybe you don't know you like cooking, but you like what that meal is, and you can ask somebody, what is this actually like? What does nectar taste like? And somebody can tell you like, oh, like go get it from here, like the nuances in a ways that the nuances in the way that compassion can show up in gaming is all about the intersectionality, is all about the ways that we lead our lives differently, and that inherently makes us all special.
Right.
You know, like for me, like I didn't know anything about cars, right? But I didn't looking at Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm like, oh, look at this Porsche. You know, like, oh, I didn't know that that's actually the classic Porsche design,
Hmm.
or you know, I didn't know like, oh, like you know how these parts work for a car, or like just thinking of other things like, oh, like Mario Kart, like I didn't realize about the double dash until somebody taught me about it, you know?
Hmm.
Or Super Smash, I didn't know about wave dashes. You know, I didn't know that there's all those parameters for pro gaming that I didn't like until somebody told me. You know, now I'm
Right.
going to say, like, if I'm going to do Super Smash, I'm not going to play against a very competitive person because I know I'm not going to have fun. I want to play with the items on person.
Right. So what you were talking about that like you didn't know until someone taught you that. It made me think about the Supergiant server. There is this like one user who's always in the like new player section, and I like to check that out myself. And they're always like, well, you can do this, and there's this about the knowledge, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, yo, I wonder if at some point they're like, just look at the wiki. I'm so glad they don't say just look at the wiki, because all of the information is compiled there. But but if you tell someone just go look it up yourself, you're missing out on that opportunity to form a connection with someone, to teach someone something, and they will be grateful to you that you didn't shut them down. Because I remember when I was working in Silicon Valley, what my then manager told me was like, I got into programming and all of this, like a lot of these things didn't exist, a lot of these technologies did not exist until someone was like, go Google it. And it's like, oh, I'm Googling it, it doesn't exist. What if I make something based on this? Like, what if I name software based on this? Like, it begins as a really snide joke, like, go Google it, and then you're like, oh, it doesn't exist. And then someone makes it exist. That's the kind of mentality out there, you know what I mean?
And it's, you know, it's just, if each one is supposed to reach one, you know, and that's how our society gets better. Like when you don't do it, it just, even in the ways like also just you know honoring people's energies and what they have time for, but there's always a way to just say like, hey, I'd love to help you, but not for me right now. But when you do say something like go Google it, that's so just asinine. It's
It's
just so,
very dismissive, it's very inconsiderate, and there's a level of condescension that comes with it when someone tells you, go look it up.
it also closes off the whole relationship. Like now I'm
Right,
not going to talk to you because
right.
now I know what you're giving. Like you're going to give me go look it up for myself tease, and if that's the case, then I might as well hang out with somebody that I can go Google it with, you know.
It's completely different when someone says, I don't have the bandwidth to address this right now. How's about you look into this?
Yeah, or like I don't have the bandwidth for this, can I respond back to this later? And I'm like, all right, cool, you
Yeah.
know.
It doesn't have to be just stop bothering me, essentially.
But it's, you know, coming back to a point, it's, there's so much in the ways of like gatekeeping, and it's really just because gamers, I think as a community as a whole, the gaming community has always been seen as an other, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, like for the people outside of gaming community, when we have like esports events, they're like, what is that? And I'm like, you know, it's a video game convention but like with a purpose. It's like an anime
Mm-hmm.
convention but with a purpose, you
Hello,
know. And
Jotho.
oh
And they
hi.
just said swag, so I was like, I just wanted to acknowledge that. Hello.
uh, but like
So
when
yeah.
there's gatekeeping, it just doesn't, no new games are talked about. Like, you know, I for a long time I didn't know about Dream Daddy until somebody told me about it, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I didn't know like, and then I learned like visual novel gaming is a thing. Like, okay, Danganronpa. Like, I didn't know that was a thing.
I've tried to actually make my own visual novel using RenP, which is a framework for working in all of that. So it's built on Python, and if you know Python, you can do a lot more with it. But the engine itself as it stands, it's pretty easy to get the scripting going. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, do I have to learn C++ plus plus to like make a game? Well, it depends on what you're trying to make. If you just want to make a basic platformer, just use Unity's game engine. You probably don't have to do that much scripting, or if you do, just look up tutorials for it. And that's another form of gatekeeping, right? Because people think, oh, if I want to make games, I have to make like the next such and such. And it's like, I don't think, I think the trajectory of the greater community with everybody going for like the AAA titles, like the super huge, like high fidelity graphics and all that stuff. There's no personality to any of it. I'm sorry, there isn't. It all looks the same to me. It's like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and then what's the next one? Red Dead Redemption, The Last of Us. I'm just like all the big ones. Assassin's Creed. It's all 3D models now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's why everybody's like, Hades has character. Supergiant's got their Gen Z came from Gaia Online. Like, you didn't
Ah,
know
you took
that?
me.
You
No,
didn't
you
know
took
that?
me. No, you took me back because I remember having a guy online
I had a
moment, and
Gaia Online account too.
there may or may not have been some real money transferred. I may or may
I
not
might
have
have
had.
begged my dad to give me a little platinum currency so I could buy those cute little things, but
I sure enough did, and it's also just like I had a point. I had a really really good point. It's
yeah.
like yes, and it's also like there's so much accessibility in the anime manga when you tap into the things that we didn't know we could tap into, right?
Hmm.
Like one of my favorite games that I really have to work on figuring out how to stream at some point because I need an emulator and a translation for it is the Sailor Moon RPG.
There's a
Like
Sailor Moon RPG?
exactly. There's a Sailor Moon RPG for the SNES, and then I put it on the same pedestal as Final Fantasy VI, the Terra one on Super Nintendo, because it's just
Nice.
that good. It's that like they make Sailor Saturn like a boss. Like she's so cool, and you fight all the like first like couple series like villains and stuff like that, and it's just so much fun. And every time I would talk about it with somebody would be like, "Oh, I love Sailor Moon, but I don't play video games." That would be a video game I'd be into, and I'm like,
It's
"Sure, I would love
bizarre,
to showcase
right?
that to
Like
you."
there are so many games that all of my casual friends I'm sure they would enjoy. Like Among Us. You can play that if you're like Werewolf or Mafia. It's just a social deduction game, but it could be a gateway. Or like excuse me, if people are playing stuff like Gardenscapes on the iPhone, which is just your classic match 3, but there's a story with it. I loved Gardenscapes. I was like, "Austin, Butler man, I love your story, but I don't want to pay money for these goddamn in-app purchases, these
Right.
IAPs." I'm like, I just want
Oh
to know.
god.
I just want to make sure that your mother goes to her cooking show, and like, I love Match 3. I played Bejeweled and all that. I play a lot of casual games, so I find a lot of good stuff on iPhone and Android.
Yeah, and
So,
it's also just like in terms of accessibility, we have to make things like better for all people. And
mhm.
then like in terms of I had a really cool, like really good point. But like I did
Do
like
you mind
for
if I use
me,
the restroom very quickly? Do you want to just hang out with chat while I use the restroom?
go for it.
Okay, I'll be
I'll
right
watch your chat.
back. Thank you.
Hello, chat. My name is Christopher Fuhrey. I'm a 33-year-old queer person living in New York City. How are you? But yes, I'm Christopher Fury, 33 years old, queer person living in New York City. I'm kind of getting into streaming. I caught into streaming as sort of a response to COVID, and then just as a way for me to kind of put my 2 cents in about the Black Lives Matters movement. So a lot of my stream is not just being a Black content creator, but also like disseminating information for people, getting out resources to folks, and making sure that people have resources for their reading, ways that they can participate in the movement. And then also I try to do like different beautiful games. So maybe not AAA stuff that you've heard of or would be like doesn't necessarily always come up. And so Ren was there for a really big portion of my 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim playthroughs that I did, because I just Vanillaware games are perfect. Oh my god, hand drawn sprites. Ugh. Um, I am looking to grow in the Twitch and Discord and all these things. Being a 33-year-old queer grandpa on the internet, I'm from the AOL, LimeWire, BitTorrent days, and those days are so far gone behind me now. But I hope to see you all again. You'll see me here on Ren's profile this way. You're here to see me here on Ren's profile, the 5th, and I'm just going to talk about anti-blackness as just as we're doing right now. So yeah, I'm also like happy to meet you all. Yay, this is so nice. Um, how are you all doing? Do you have any questions for me? I'm also like a social worker in a sense, so I in a sense kind of do this sort of talking and speaking with people on the regular. So, story of my life. All right,
Hello?
you're back.
I am
I just
back.
sort of like introduced myself to your wonderful chat.
Aw, I know, they're fantastic. I love them so much. And there are like a lot of new faces here too. Very cool. We have people from D'Angelo Murillo's community. We have people from Kid Rennie's community. People from Samaris's community. So many people. It's ridiculous right now. I'm just like, what's going on? What happened today?
I was gonna
This
say you were
is
loved on the internet.
this is completely impromptu stream as well. So, I
Oh,
mean,
I love it. And I also like this gave me a break from like all the overwhelming things in my day. Just like I
mhm.
had a 4-day weekend, for President's Day and then a mental health day. And
Yeah.
then the thing about being a social worker coming back off break is that there is people who have mental health needs that I have to respond to like as soon as I get back. So I've actually
And that's
like
the thing, right? You and I talked about a lot of the trauma you see, like from a what is like secondhand perspective, and I kind of want to give chat a heads up, or maybe even do a poll. Do they want to go into it? Because it can be really triggering. It can be really heavy, and it's a powerful discussion. But also, most people who tuned in were like, "I'm here for Hades." So
yeah.
I am going to set up a poll really fast if I can figure out my life. Let's see here. Manage poll. Poll management. New poll. I will put, are you interested in hearing about social work? Content warning can be triggering. Oh, I can't even type that. It doesn't let me. There's no space for it.
Oh.
Yes, no, maybe another stream. All right, I'm gonna do that. We're gonna have the duration be maybe 5 minutes? A 5 minute poll, give people chances.
You got 5 minutes. You got five
Okay,
minutes.
there we go. I will start the poll now, and it should be live. So it's basically, are you interested in hearing about social work with the understanding that there are a lot of triggering things that happen in social work, especially since Christopher works with, as you said, how would you describe the population that you work with?
I work with LGBTQIA plus youth from 13 to 24. Well, actually, sorry, my caseload is actually different. I work with um, LGBTQIA plus youth of color and straight, just all youth, pretty much youth of any identity and representation from the age of 13 to 29.
I'm in that range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this January was kind of a rough. February is kind of January, February is kind of a rough time for me because I'm just coming back from like being off for Christmas break, and then kind of getting back into the digs of it. However, I also work on a contract, and my contract ends in March, so I'm just trying to close all of that stuff before the end of March. I also work in HIV prevention as an HIV tester and sexual health counselor, and all that work has to be done. Like I do like 4 jobs in one.
You are just superhuman.
So like when I
You're
clock
a super
in,
giant.
I am. Oh my god, I'm a transistor.
Not a transformer, a transistor.
I am a transistor. I am the paintbrush that shapes the world.
Oh my god. Let me paint you a picture.
Royce is still my favorite. Royce is still my favorite character out of that whole game, just because of the way that his lines are delivered, were like so suave but yet so creepy.
There was something very dark and sinister about Royce in that unsettling yet sophisticated way.
Yeah,
Again,
like
like with like Ares and Hannibal.
it's like that final fight between him and Red, and like the whole battle scene lines up, and he's just like, "Oh, maybe it's my turn. Let's try this," and then like the whole turn thing starts for him, and you're just like,
Hmm.
"Ah, this is not what I was predicting."
I wasn't ready for this!
I wasn't ready to have like spicy feelings. Like
Oh my
yes,
god, my
Zaddy,
links is not working. But go on, keep talking.
like yes, Zaddy Royce hit me, but also like don't hit me hard.
Thank goodness this is flagged as M.
Zaddy Royce. But yeah.
I if I had to choose from the camarada that I was partial towards, I would say
Ooh.
Asher.
Yeah, Asher and Grant, they had that whole like younger, older relationship moment, and I was like, yes, get it,
That
get it.
that what is it? The dynamic you see so often in it's gay culture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a happy cis gay couple in the way that they could be happy. Like we're gonna be together. Let's get a cat. Let's
Yeah.
fuck up the world and Romeo and Juliet that shit.
Do crime, be gay. That's what
And
all the Zoomers are saying these days.
just be gay. Just be gay. That's my advice.
Oh my goodness. But to circle back to the title of us discussing racism in America, we just went on and on about gatekeeping in the gaming community, but racism in America is linked to that. You see the racism in the gaming community,
It
so.
is. It was so poignant. It was so poignant, and it just throws me for the left every time I think about how people were so against there being a black Spider-Man. And like when people would like say like, "Oh, Miles Morales shouldn't exist," and I'm like, "You do know that Stan Lee created this character, right? Like this is an actual canon person, right? Like he gets the time of day." And like when people would send death threats to Childish Gambino, and I'm like, this is like casting a new actor. Just like we've had four Spider-Mans in this lifetime already. Tobey Maguire, Andrew whatever the face, blah 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 blah. Like let Childish Gambino do the dang thing. There's already four white dudes doing it. Let one black dude have a moment. And then Spider-Man Miles Morales came out,
Oh my
and
god, can someone do an infographic of that? About how there have been four white Spider-Men and then one black Spider-Man? Like
and
there's
the
that's the entire metaphor for racism in America.
and they had like four like no tea no shade, four dudes who all were like milk toast looking, played Spider-Man.
We
Like
only got one vote on the poll and they said yes, they are interested in hearing about your social work.
okay, I mean I'll finish this thought because this is a thought, and like for me whenever I see black representation in like a nerd media, I will cry. I will boo hoo like
Mhm.
hard. Like I finished like in Miles Morales and I finished it, not to give like a huge spoiler moment, but like I cried at that ending. And even I cried at the credits because there's a moment in the credits when they talk about Chadwick Boseman and just like the growth and what he really did for black media. And there was a moment in on SNL when they brought in like people who had watched Black Panther, like black people who had watched the movie, and they're talking about like, oh, like I really like this
Can
movie
I
and I see myself in it.
can I say
And
something about
Chadwick,
Black Panther?
go for it.
When we watched it in the theater at Oakland and the splash screen said Oakland, California, the entire theater erupted. The entire theater erupted. And it was just such a powerful, visceral moment to be there in the theater, hearing all the black voices being like, yes, yes, you can enjoy this media that is ours. In the same vein that people are like, oh, we can enjoy like the Book of Life or Coco. And it's like, yes, Black Panther. You don't have to be black to like Black Panther.
And even one I want to say like you heard that I that you heard the universal sound of I feel seen, like that is what you heard was that universal sound. And then like for me being able to like there's so many I for y'all I've already just said like I live here in New York City already, and I've done a lot of work like doing like digging up black history within New York City because there is a lot of like really prominent black history in New York City. And then to see a lot of those landmarks in Miles Morales tells me that there was somebody in that team that says, no, this is a black thing. This goes in here. Like if this is going to be the full rounded game it's going to be, this gets in here. And going to work and working with youth who play video games. Some of my clients have come up to me and they say, you know what, I actually saw myself in a video game. I think I might have a career in video game, like voice
Oh my
acting.
god.
Like I never, and I'm sitting here like that really opened the door for someone to think about how their career could be different.
That's why people keep saying representation matters.
When people are freed, when people are liberated to dream, things change. And for me to have a like 14-year-old child who's homeless and queer come up to me and say, like, I want to get my life together so I can become a video game designer. I want to do video game acting. And I'm sitting,
Sorry,
yes, exactly that, Ren. I've bawled my eyes out because that's freeing. That makes my job so much easier. I don't have to be a social worker anymore. I get to just be a person and say, okay, what do you need? Like, do we need to like you need like job interview clothes? Like, we need to get you like in the room. We need to work on your resume. Like, what's your bank account look like? Like, we can get to work, but the dream has to come first. And for some people, without the representation, they don't even know the dream is there. And gatekeeping keeps people away from the dream. Gatekeeping does not allow people to be great on either side. Yeah. Yeah.
I am a
And
sympathetic crier. Don't mind me. I'm fine.
but it's also like people should be allowed to dream. People should be allowed, like, for me, a really great moment of seeing your dream come to fruition is when I watched the woman who was the voice actress for Aerith in a Final Fantasy VII remake. When she plays the game and she runs up to herself for the first time and she hears herself giving Aerith's first line in Final Fantasy VII and watching her cry, I'm like, that's it. That's what gaming is supposed to do. Like, we're supposed to play games until the point we can be the games, so that
Chat's
people
crying. Chat's
so
also
that
crying.
like people can also do that. Like, yes, like I would love it if people could like dream, people could see themselves. My kid who's like 14 years old, who's like wanted to be a game designer, now is like in my emails like, I just played this great game, I think I want to make something like this. And they're like, I made this great game and I play something like this. And I'm like, that's a horror game, this is a dating sim, I want you to put them together now, and that's your game.
There are horror dating sims out there. I have seen a
and
handful. They're pretty solid.
And the real key thing is like, even if I don't understand this person's dream, I'm not gonna gatekeep them. I'm not gonna tell them like, this is I'm not gonna give them, I'm not gonna sit here and tell them like, okay, well, just so you know, the road is hard. The road is hard no matter what your dream is. The road will always be hard no matter what your dream is. The way that I can counteract gatekeeping when it's in communities like this is just encourage this person.
Right.
Is not even to even be in the dream, but to be the safe space for you when you're tired of working for the dream. Yes, it's been a long day of you trying to figure out video game design. How can I just be a friend with you? How can I pick you back up today? How can we de-stress from you today? I'm going to be a friend for you. And also giving this person the right space to like let them flourish in their dream, right? So like my youth who wants to be a video game designer, I'm like, have you talked to your friends about video games and play games with them? And so before the lockdown started, we actually, and this is before Miles, it's kind of in the ways of Miles Morales, but we started a video game club. And I, just a social work, like just so other youth can be in the room and talk about what they're going through while also talking through a video game. It's there's also a really great representation moment, and it's a really short video game series that I love because I'm an 80s baby, called 198X.
Mm-hmm. Never heard
And
of it, but go on.
it's it's an homage to every great 80s arcade game you've ever played, like Strider, Outrun. um, it's on like PS4 and Xbox and stuff, but there's a queer character named Kid, and Kid is just a kid. And I took that game with me to work and just said, like, hey, when I was growing up queer, this is what it was like for me. And all my kids said, oh, these were the games you played. Now we know why you like them. Now they're different. And thankfully now we have like a video game like design internship with them, with the kids. So they're actually making those games for me, which, it's sort of like really hard to like, one, like, I really appreciate that sort of, I appreciate, you know, the gift, but what really is the achievement for me is I empowered someone enough that they went off and made something for me. They wanted to show it for me in a way that I tried to show it for them. It's not that hard to let people have space. It's not that hard to give people access to their dreams. All you have to do is just empower a person. All you have to do is just say, you can do it. Just go. Be it. This is space for you. I'm going to share the space for you. We're different, yes, but the way that I encourage you is the same way you encourage me. In the same way we're in a space, we're video gamers. We already know that life sucks. Why don't we bridge that bridge with love in the way that we're different? Why don't we just be loving to one another? I will get to know so much more about you. You'll get to know so much more about me, and we're both going to become better people, not just as gamers, but in our actual like work lives, as better people to the people we have relationships with, better people to the people we're friends with, and better people to the people who haven't met us yet. And I'm a person who says, you do not know, you'll never know the people that you need to meet. You also don't know how many people need to meet you.
This
There's
is
so many people who will be so much better by meeting you.
this is the preview for March 5th, Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We hope you'll all be there.
Bring your
To
tissues.
to react to what you brought up about giving someone space for all of that. Just the other day, someone messaged me, someone who was a part of Joe's server messaged me and told me, "Hey, I just wanted to reach out to you for the fact that you gave me a gift sub over a year ago, and I have been, I have been paying that gift sub forward to multiple people who are either, their sub's about to run out, they're going through financial problems and things like that." And I was like, I did not expect this when I said pay it forward. I didn't think it happened, but it kind of did. Have I told you that story about why I gave Joe so many subs?
No, but it's that's thinking of this person and putting myself in this person's shoes. Let's go empathy. Boom, 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 boom. Empathy gun. Like that person held on to that gift that you gave them for a year. That person looked back on you in that moment as a fond memory. You made that person smile on a singular thought for a year. And they took that smile and they made other people smile exponentially. So that is what love does in a gaming community. Not only does it invite people in, you actively heal someone else's trauma. You don't know what someone else is going through on the other side of that controller online, but the way that you did something that was so singular and so important to that person, it took them out of their trauma. They smiled. Everything that they could have found in that moment to be sad about, they couldn't. That was a glorious moment, and they turned it into a glorious moment that they could give to someone else.
You
that
know,
is that is healing. That's so much healing.
I never really got into my thought process of why I did that because I know a lot of people would have looked at that and thought like if you really cared about Joe and you wanted to support him, why didn't you donate to him directly? Why didn't you donate to a cause? Why did you gift sub his community like that? And for me, it was because it was the community aspect. It was like at that point, it was 100 subs and it built out his community and people kept adding me being like thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm like, no, don't thank me, just pay it forward. And to know that when I was struggling, when I was pretty much kicked out of yet another online community because we had our differences, to know that I could go back to Joe's server and be like, hi, it's me, and everybody recognized me and remembered that I don't know why I was just kind of like blown away by the response. I don't know why I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. And
It
I,
just it just came naturally to you. Something about that moment you just did. Something about that moment you didn't do as like a point of like an objective or like a task to do in the day. It was just something that just flowed off the hip for you and you did it. And I'm going to take this conversation and kind of change a word, and I'm going to change community now into family, right? And we know that we have birth family and chosen family. And when you gift a sub like that, it's like putting the family at a dinner table. You're making sure everyone has a seat at the dinner table. Everyone who is there, everyone at that family like moment, like at a function, at a cookout, at a family moment where there's family, it's not the same if people are missing from your family. So you want everybody to sit at the table with you. That's what you did. And you gave everybody a place to sit. And
back then when I had disposable income, I probably really could follow up with that line. It started as a joke, but I wish it was true. It was the whole, you know how Dimitri in Fire Emblem Three Houses, his line is like kill every last one of them.
I actually have not played
You
Fire
haven't
Emblem.
played it. He
I
says
haven't.
like kill
Yeah.
every last one of them, just a heads up. But then everybody in the chat turned it into sub every last one of them. So I kicked it off. Then other people start gift subbing, and then it just kept going and going and going. Yeah.
And that's super cool. That's super awesome. You know what I mean? Like, y'all had a family moment built around humor. It was a super cool moment. Everyone enjoyed. Like, it was 100%. It's one of those moments when it's like 100% impact and 100% return, you know? Like, you just kept the family together, you know? People are joined by the streamer, and now they remember you as a person like, hey, like, you gifted us a sub. Like,
Can I tell you my latest project, my latest goal? Just everybody tuning in, and this is just so bad of me. I should be asking both parties if it's okay. I only asked one half. I was like, "Are you interested?" Cyrus Namadi, the voice actor of Ares, Dionysus, and Theseus, is not familiar with the Los Angeles voice acting community, and I was like, well, I'm kind of I don't know if Joe considers me a friend. He at least considers me a fellow professional because he told me that before. I was like, I'll work my magic. I will see what I can do, Cyrus, to get you and Joe Zisha connected up. Because they're both writers, they're both voice actors, they both like video games. What more common ground do you need? I'd love to see the two of them do some kind of stream event, if not a live event, then at least like a video or like a call and be like, let us hear it. What's up?
and,
So,
it just takes like, by bridging people who come from different video games, like, we all are made better by it, you know what I mean? Like, now that I have not played this game yet, but I'm going to try
it's for the
Code Vein.
Switch. It's only for the Switch.
Okay, well, I'm going to try Code Vein, and I'm not a roguelike game player except for
Oh.
Hades, because Hades is a fun roguelike for me,
Code
and this
Vein
other
is
kind
not
of
as accessible. I've tried it.
yeah, see, and I don't know how I feel about that, but also at the same time I'm like, well, I just want to play. I want to know other people who've played this game who kind of play it like kind of casually. Like, for me, video
Hmm.
games are the escape of the release, from a world that sees me and other, being a black queer person who does like social work for, people say that I am. I've heard this phrase before that they call social workers the janitors of capitalism, which
What?
kind of drives it home for me. But like, when I'm done when I'm done healing the world, I kind of want to go have fun. What does it mean for me to go have fun? And I have
How
to
do
have
you
video
just
games.
turn it off? How do you pull away from the responsibility of feeling like these are lives in my hands? And I
That's a very good question. People ask me that all the time. I
I
have
was
to
speaking
remember.
rhetorically.
Oh, I just have to remember, like, I can't solve every problem. I
Yeah.
really can't, and it's taking a community. And here's a really cool part. And I try to remind people of this, and this is for chat, this is for you as well.
Hmm.
All the work that I'm doing as a social worker, you're doing the same amount of work. You're
Eh?
literally doing the same amount of work. The way that you just gifted a sub, you know what I mean? The way that you give people platform, that is also social work. When you ask
Oh.
somebody about how, like, hey, how are you? How's your day? When you ask somebody what are their pronouns, that's social work. When you ask somebody what are their pronouns, they have to think about their identity. What about their identity are they proud about? Being a male, being a female, being something else, being all those things, or nothing else, Giving that person the agency and the power to speak is social work. And you do that when you say Black Lives Matters, you're also doing social work. You're doing so, like, the art of social work isn't. This is why I'm like, social work for a higher ed doesn't make sense, because social work is just, how do you listen to a person? How do you treat people as a better human? How do you really dig into the nuances of what a person's going through and figure that out? And for me, a lot of the best moments of social work have been like, and content warning, trigger warning, for drinking and drug use and stuff like that, have been in like clubs, when people, like, when shit has hit the fan, and I have to talk a person down in a club, and I'm like, what are you really going through? Why are you mad? You're having this outburst. Okay, this outburst is really, really treating people some kind of way. Where is this coming from? Okay, would you like a problem, or would you like a comfort or a solution to your problem? Because I can give you either or both or none. Is me hearing you just enough? And giving people that agent. When I used to do that, and people would have the agency to say yes, no, this, that, this, and this, and all, people would be like, oh my God, that helped. That really helped me.
It's interesting that you bring that up because so many people say I don't know what'll help. I don't know what'll help. But I think it's more so they've never had that moment of someone genuinely listening and hearing them out and being like asking them what they need and they're like, I don't know because I've never had the chance to figure it out. And what I've noticed though is like when I'm struggling, people are very quick to dispense solutions to me, and I already know like unless I ask for a solution, unless I ask for advice, what I really want is for someone to hear me and tell me that the emotions that I'm experiencing are understandable, that I'm not crazy. And when someone told me that I was not being normal the other day, it really hurt. It really hurt because that's like the big fear that they see my diagnosis, not me.
And I hate the operative word of normal because normal makes it sound like there's this line, this invisible line that you need to be at, and that invisible line is not a line that you got to set. And you know that might work for some people, but like that doesn't give you space for everything that is around you, and everything that is you are you. You are you is you is you. You can't be anybody other than you, and that's all you can be. Angry you is still you, and however you're feeling is you. So when people tell me, people used to say like, "Oh my gosh, you're not so normal," and I'm like, one, normal is overrated, and two, what's your idea of normal? Because I feel like your idea of normal might be boring because people go through shit all the time. And for me to go through shit is actually kind of normal. For me to be sad about stuff that I would normally be sad about is normal for me. That's my normal. And I'm giving it to you as this. And you kind of just want to package it up and just sort of like dismiss it and call it, you're not being normal. Well, you don't know me. It just reminds me that you don't know me that well.
So there are two questions that came up. Buffalo is asking you, Christopher, do you think it would
Ooh,
be beneficial if more people learned about social work skills in school? But then the second point that we never circled back to was like people wanted to hear about your experiences in social work, including the triggering traumatic things that you have witnessed.
okay.
So maybe
So
we should
first,
start with Buffalo's question.
all right, so let's start with Buff. So Buff, I think everyone should learn. I think really do think everyone should learn social work stuff in school because and this I so just to give you sort of a backstory, I have two families: my chosen family and my birth. And my birth family was very much into social services, being public servants. I come from a family of police officers, so the whole defund the police thing I get because my mom was a person who was like, learn better facilities so that me as a police officer, I only have to deal with the violent stuff. But my mother worked with many people who were living on the autism spectrum before she became a police officer, and she always told me, the ways in which we talk and encourage and empower somebody on the autism spectrum looks different for someone who isn't on the autism spectrum, and that's not okay. We have to remember to empower all people. People living with disabilities that are seen or not seen. We all have to treat them as in empowerment. Social work for you as a person really helps because and I try to teach this to my husband in sort of really great ways, like when I have an argument or if I'm really blowy up at you, please don't get mad at the way that I present myself. Actually ask me the question of where is this coming from. Those words, that whole sentence on its own, actually has so much power to take somebody out of what they're going through, to just say like, oh, like I'm coming at you this kind of way because of a way that I'm holding on to something that happened last week. Can we talk about this? Like, oh, I didn't realize I was holding this. Where is this coming from? Oh, okay, well, I'm really feeling something about a way that's going in my day. I normally wouldn't have spoke about this, but you asked me, and now I can let it go. Now I can, it's giving living those kind of giving those social work tools and putting them into your normal life is helps gets you back into collaborative spaces much easier, I guess, if that makes sense. So like in the ways of like me and Ren just being here, if one of us was going through something, if I didn't have the tools to like if we didn't have the tools to get through that, we would just sort of be stuck in the emotion and our conversation would not go anywhere. But if one of us does get into something, one of us is able to say like, hey, like, what are you going through? Like, hey, I want to hear you for a moment. Like, what's up? Like, talk to me. And we'll talk and I'll just be like, all right, cool, thank you for sharing this with me. Is there's anything I can ever do, you let me know. But I'm happy to hear you and I hope that I hurt you. And that's it. That's so it. People, I've done this conversation with clients on the street doing outreach. Like, I'll go out into the streets and talk to people about this. I feel like a like town crier, like prophet, like, bring out your dead whenever I do it. But like doing that with people, especially at grocery stores, people are like, wow, okay, thank you. I've sat next to a woman at a restaurant who was getting into an argument on the phone with her boyfriend, and she's being very loud and disturbing people. And after she was done with her conversation, because I didn't want to get in her way, I just wanted to say, like, hey, I'm sitting here. I just want to preface this. I'm a mental health first aid responder. Like, I'm a social worker. This is what I do. I sense that you're holding a lot of things. You're going to go out into the world, and if you just want to spare like 2 minutes, can you just sort of just talk at me, like, just kind of tell me where that came from? We're Instagram best friends now. Like,
When you
like she
listen
sent
to people, when you acknowledge them, you never know where it's gonna go.
she sends me like Black Lives Matters clothes that she makes now because that's her brand, and she's like, this is what I do. And like, I think you would really like this. And I'm like, of course I'd really like this, because you got to know me in 2 minutes. Like, I just asked you what was up. I somehow had that conversation with her and turned her frown into a smile, and she got to go live the rest of her day. And she like, come to find out, we like have mutual friends, and it's super cool. So that's what I would say for Buff's question. Now, my tenure with social work. So I have been doing social work for really, really, I say, like, I've been doing social work as a non-clinician for a really, really long time, since the day I could speak as a child. I'm 5 out of 5, military family, and I grew up with the saying, you have to be twice as good to get half as much, which for a black family is like nothing but harm, because I always felt like I had to be twice as good as everybody else, when really I was just valid. I was already enough as it was, and nobody ever told me that. And I had to learn that at a later age. I also, me as a person, really didn't come into loving my full blackness or my identity until I was about 26. I'm 33 now. So I came from a very white centric portion of North Carolina. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, to be specific, which is the seat of the KKK on the East Coast. Um,
Holy shit.
yes, while also being the secretary of Black Lives Matters for North Carolina while I still lived there. So you can imagine, while also, living in I had, this is fun fact, I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage was a mess. I am a trigger warning, content warning. I am a domestic abuse survivor in that regard with my first husband. And there's a great portion of my life where social work saved me, where social work in the guise of holistic queerness saved me. And it was literally the day I was coming out of that. I was like about to be discharged from the hospital about this whole domestic abuse shit. And there was a moment that a woman, I was pretty big into clubs. I'm like 20, like 24. I'm like doing my thing. I'm in clubs, like, ooh, raise the roof, getting my Britney Spears on. And there's also a scene in Greensboro that is like very heavy into drag queens, blah, blah, blah. And there's also a big scene of trans women who do drag in North Carolina. And there's this one woman in North Carolina who had like the biggest like chosen family. Like, she was the lady. She is the lady to beat. And I'd seen her before in the club, and I'd always say hello, like, how are you? But people knew me because I was, my mother was a police officer, very prominent lady. I was, who I was, doing social work and also managing a hot topic at the time. Go me, Jinko pants. And I'm leaving the hospital, just got discharged. I'm in the middle of my like grad studies, like doing all this kind of stuff. And like I was literally at the end of my rope, and I suffered from suicidal ideation for months on a time, months and months and months on a time. And there were times when I really, really, really had like a plan. I was ready to follow through with it. And I'm leaving the hospital, life in shambles. And this woman is here. This woman from the club is here. And she looks at me and she goes, I've seen you around a really long time, and I never got to ask you, how are you feeling? Everything that you've gone through, I watched you go through, and I want to ask you, how are you feeling? And that was a moment that I knew that social work was the place for me to be. I had been put into social work by my mother because she wanted me to be a social worker, if I wasn't going to join the military or the police. And she's like, do something, like, just do this because it seems like this is you. Like, you seem to care a lot. And I was like, fine. But when she said that to me, everything about me changed. I was like, this is it. I don't know who you are, lady, but I love you. I would love to be a friend with you. I hope that, whatever. Fast forward many, many moons. This woman is now my chosen mother. She is my drag mom. She's my best friend. She is my mentor. She is my hero. Like, I can only think about her and smile. She died April 20th, 2012 of HIV and AIDS. She never told me about her diagnosis because when I was also like trying to practice, she would also fund me. She would be my mentor. She'd like give me space. Like, you need an office space, you need a computer. Like, let's get you all these resources. But she never told me because she, also being a sex worker, was just like, I'm literally, I want you to have the best life ever, you know? And there is not a day, there is not a day yet that I have done social work that I don't look at the last text message she sent me. And the last text message she sent me was, "You are loved. You are so loved by me." And I have been committed to making the world a better place every day since. If I cannot speak to love when I speak, I do not say it. If I cannot speak into a way that does not empower me, or does not put people in the light, I don't say it. I I will simply give my life, my being, and my energy to making this world a better place. Because for me and my story, I was almost gone. I was almost gone at a younger time. Now that I think about it, on the other side of like that suicidal ideation moment, that wasn't my time. That, like, yes, I was going through it, but I also I needed to recognize my resilience, and that was something she taught me to recognize and advocate for. Like, remember, you were really strong for coming through that. You went through a whole bunch of bullshit by yourself. you know and no one knew because you didn't want to bother anybody. But you know what, you still made it. You're still here. You can do really great things now. And I learned, in the ways that you right, like dreams, you never know that a dream is a dream of yours until you have it. My mother was also a really great makeup artist. I learned makeup from her. I went on to do makeup at New York Fashion Week because of her. Like, all of that never would have happened if I had never met her. As much as she needed to meet me, I also needed her. And now I get to be the queer mentor for queer youth and queer people who are younger than me, and just say, like, listen, I really, really went through it. I dug myself up from the bootstraps. I was homeless, out on the streets, intravenous drug user. Like, I was all the things that society hated. And every way that society could have kicked me out, they did. They really did. I found solace and peace in gaming. I found solace and peace in holistic practices. I found solace and peace in Black Lives Matters. I found peace. And now, for many of my days, and just to make this more colloquial, in the ways that I existed, and I found nothing but war, I found nothing but hate, I found nothing but gatekeeping, I am now going to empower a world with arms wide open, doors open. That's the world I want to be in. Sorry.
You're fine. No, I'm only crying because I relate to it. I have stuff to say about that too.
And, but that's, and I didn't, if it hadn't been for my mother, and I speak her name into existence, y'all learn the name Arabia Night Adams, because that, if there is a mother of all mothers, that's my mom. That's my mom. When I had my wedding, there was an empty chair at my wedding for her with the crown that she gave me. Like, I spoke about her in my vows. Like, there's not a day that goes by I do not deify that woman, because she was the goddess I needed. She was my storm in my Black Panther movie. Like, she was the queen of the weather for me, because just as much as she empowered me, she was also a great mother, and she very much kept me accountable and in line. And the way that she raised me, and the way they say raised, like, I was already in my 20s, but like, the way that she raised me, healed everything about me. Like, everything that was everything that I felt like weight and trauma, and everything that I felt was like shackles and chains keeping me down, those were actually my powerful moments. Those were actually my superpowers. And so now with social work, I I think social work applies to everybody. Everyone can learn to be a better human. Everyone can learn, and really social work is just how do you ask better questions about a person? How do you ask on a one-on-one basis better questions about a person that helps them, that helps you? And the answer to that question is there is no specific question. Get in there and ask those questions, Get in there and let it be a learning exercise. But always remember that people deserve to be held in the light, and that's just what I'm trying to do. And so now with social work, I'm working on different therapy models that incorporate video gaming, because video gaming is from development until creation until consumption can actually be looked as a form of therapy. And the one great moment in video gaming as therapy that I really love is the Microsoft Flight Simulator. And sometimes I'll get on YouTube and I'll watch actual like flight captains of actual like airplanes who can't fly airplanes right now because of COVID smile in front of a computer trying to fly this like little propeller plane. And I'm like, this is so cute. This is what video gaming is supposed to do for people. Like, look at this little old man flying this plane. And fuck if he didn't crash into the Chrysler building. But like it's so adorable. It gives video gaming as therapy could really give something back that society takes away. This is just a teaser for the fifth, y'all.
This is just the teaser for the fifth, y'all. But
Oh
after
man.
yesterday, when you and I had that super long conversation, and we both had to be like, okay, we gotta go shower, do our thing, get ready for whatever event we had. But we just went on and on and on and on and on. And that was when I realized you need to be on the channel. You need to talk to people. You need to be seen. You need to be heard.
Yeah, and thank you. I have this weird like superpower that like I will say like a thing and people will like get kind of misty-eyed about it and I'm like, "Damn, I am really passionate about this shit. Hold on. Am I good at this?"
You're so funny about that.
I'm sitting here like I want to save the world, but damn, I didn't think I'd be good at it. But it's also like in this world that I envision, I also am really tired. I also want people to be empowered to brag about what they do. I like it when people are humble, but I also like seeing people be proud of what they do. So when people brag to me about things that they do, and they put things like how you do sometimes in my server in the bragging rights place, I every time you do it, I think to myself, this is another thing for this person to be proud of themselves for, and I wonder if they see it as much as I do. You know?
Honestly, I didn't really feel it until Darren was willing to be on the channel, and then my numbers went up 1,000%. We did the math, and I was like, that's a 1,000% increase. People are here for Darren Korb, ladies and gentlemen. And those are gender nonconforming. But I
Gentlemen,
think
gentlemen and ladies,
the Themtlemen and Thadies.
the League of
uh,
Extraordinary Gentlemen. I love that.
what really hit me hard was when Sam, who also does interviews, we were talking in DMs about things, and he was all like, the only reason why you haven't broken 300 right now is because people don't know you exist. And I'm like, that can't be the reason. And the reason why I don't think that's the reason is because when I was starting out, I had this one person follow me. I forget his full handle, but he was like Whisper something, and he taught me how to play Hades and stuff, or rather, gave me a lot of backseating advice that I wasn't ready for, but I was like, okay, I guess I can do all this. And he followed me along up until the point where he came on to do some Jackbox, and we're like, okay, that's like super problematic. We can't do this. I'm sorry. Like, I appreciate you helping me, but like, that's not okay. And I don't know where the heck that user has gone. He helped me out a lot with a bunch of stuff, but it comes to mind because I opened up in chat, or not chat, but rather I was like broadcasting my voice, and I said, I've been to the psych ward. I have been admitted to a psychiatric hospital before, and it was the most harrowing experience because when it happened, I was full on hallucinating in a fugue state. And
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about this, but trying to say it out loud is very hard. It's going to be a lot of content warnings, trigger warnings, a lot of self harm and suicidal ideation and attempts. I had a manic episode, and with mania, that is when you have delusions of grandeur. That is when you hallucinate. That is when, like, you feel really good and euphoric for like a stretch, and then you come crashing down, right? So when I came crashing down, I was hallucinating and so paranoid that I thought that me being admitted to the ER at that point after screaming at my parents, I want to kill myself, was that I thought that I was already in hell being at the ER and that I would be left in the ER and abandoned. So when I was transferred to the psychiatric ward and placed in the schizophrenia ward, by accident, by the way, they placed me, they assumed that I was schizophrenic. And they placed me there and they observed me overnight. And when they realized that I was like sort of calm, but still very paranoid about what was going on, they moved me to the bipolar ward. Just for the hell of it, you know? It's like, you're probably not schizophrenic, but you got something going on with you. I thankfully my mom did make the effort to visit me or like call me every day and all of that while I was there. Where was I going with this? Right. Before I ended up there, the reason why I was transferred to the ward, the psychiatric hospital from the ER, was because I thought that I had screwed up so badly, that I was such a bad person, that I had somehow ruined everything because I was ready to hurt myself, ready to die, and like just raising the flag, right? I felt so guilty for raising the flag and saying, I need help. I am crying out for help. I don't know what's going on. I thought that I was trapped in the ER because I was like in hell, I was dying, and all those things. And it got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, it's not going to stop unless I actually kill myself. And I thought it had to be the most painful experience, too. I thought it wouldn't be good enough to just like, let's find some pills. We're going to find those in the ER, right? What I did when nobody was looking was I literally bashed my head against the wall, trying to kill myself like that. And so after I kind of settled in and they doped me up with medication in the psychiatric hospital, and I was lucid enough to say, I don't want to be here, I should not be here, and I was articulating that they were giving me the wrong diagnosis. In my medical file, they said I was homeless. I was not homeless, I was living with my parents still. After all that fiasco, we got patient advocacy in there, and I had to go through an entire trial, like a trial essentially, with like a judge who like looks over the case and everything. And it counts as leaving AMA, which is against medical advice. And because I left the psychiatric hospital AMA, I legally cannot own a firearm, with the implication that someone thinks I will hurt myself if I have one. That is to answer your question. Why can't you own a firearm, Ren? Because I left the psychiatric hospital AMA.
And
And there's a little more to the story wherein I tried going out in public too early to like a Halloween party and I could not handle all the strangers and I tried to again bash my head in my best friend's bathroom. I tried to kill myself there too.
one, thank you for sharing because I know and recognize that that's one. It's hard to recognize it, and hold also like just to go back to what that was, and two to share it on this platform. That's super brave of you, super empowering of you to share your story. Once again, I always say, you never know who needed to hear that. In a ways of freeing. I look at trauma as a way. It's the roadmap to freedom.
And for me,
Because
it's like I'm not even saying it so that chat pities me or whatever. I'm saying it because I want them all to know that I have been at that low and I'm still coming back up. If I can do it and we've all been there, like the rest of you can do it too. I know that you are more capable than you realize. If you think I'm capable, just imagine how capable you are. So,
and that's the glory. That's the glory of being transparent and like being vulnerable, right? Like you sharing your trauma, me sharing my trauma reminds people that these cycles still exist, in the ways that we regard mental health at times where they miss the mark, in your experience, being misplaced in different places in a psych ward, that's not taking your mental health seriously. It's almost sounds like instead of people coming to talk to you, they just put you in a category and let you like just kick it in a room. Hopefully us doing this talk and like being vulnerable and transparent with people will remind people that that does not work. It actually takes a human element to help heal people. Like systems do not heal people. Systems keep people in boxes, and those boxes are not big enough anymore. And But humans, we have the glory of divinity. Like we are as much of, just to quote unquote not be religious, but like we are as much of a god or a goddess as much as the god is outside of us. It is it is a reminder that all humans come back from the same source, right? We are all source energy. We're all love and light. We all come from one place. Everything that you like in a person is what you like in yourself, and everything that you dislike in a person can be reflected back as well. And so if we can try to really shift and position all those things that we dislike about ourselves and learn to love them and learn to be around people who also love them and empower us to be that as well, then we can heal trauma. We can start the roadmap to freedom, because that's what it is. And then also in with trauma, I also into dealings with, my own family and the whole displacement of that. I also dealt with that moment of just being super low out of a family that, I'm from a military family where like I had a preordained marriage by the time I was 30. Like I was going to marry my childhood best friend who was a female who already knew I was queer as fuck. And she was like, this will never work. We'll sleep in two other beds. She's like, we can get married for the tax reasons, but I don't think you got what I want. And I'm like, I don't think you got what I want either. And like also, but I can talk about that trauma now, and it's funny because now my trauma is my power. Now
Right.
I remember those moments when I felt low, and
It's that suffering that enables you to have empathy with others.
it's that suffering, and it's the suffering, and I remember this. It's suffering, and I remember there was a poignant mind in my moment when I was able to hold the suffering, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, "No, this is not what we're going through today. We're actually going to do something different." Actually, this face, when it's not smiling, that's actually not a fun face. This face is saying something. This face is saying a lot, and I want to be that face. I want to be that face because that face feels good on my face. Like the muscles are nice, my cheekbones are there, I don't look 33, thank goodness, but the way I look when I enjoy myself is also how I want to be seen in pictures. I want to be seen as a smiling person in pictures. Everything that I suffered and went through, they can either be, the lock on the door to the cellar that keeps me in the basement, or they can be the stairs to the attic. And all the good stuff's in the attic. Like, sure, okay. Maybe there are some instances where I haven't necessarily healed from all my trauma and the things that happened to me, like my, last marriage and that sort of stuff. Like, I don't know where he is in the world. I don't think about him very much now. I hope that he's a better person to the next person he's in a relationship with. And if not, I hope that that next person can also hold him accountable, because he needs that. And I hope that he becomes a better person. And if our lives ever pass again, he's going to, and the great part and the revenge for me, quote unquote, revenge, if I am holding this person, the revenge for me is he's going to see me again, or probably has seen me since, and I am a much different person. I am a much more powerful person, and I'm a much more happier person than when I was with him. And now I'm much a more happier person without him. My life is still kept moving. There are people out here in the world who want to be with me, who want to love me, who want to show me the good day. And if I'm going through something, they're gonna let me feel how I feel, but they're also gonna remind me that they're there to support me. And that really, really, really changed my life. That whole phrase, "Where is this coming from?" The first time I was ever asked that, "How are you feeling about this?" Like, being able to have the agency to say how I felt about something instead of somebody speaking for me, like Red. I actually had to sit there and think, like, how do I feel?
That's the
I feel
thing,
good.
right? Like
I
people
feel good.
see how you externalize those emotions and they assume for you what you're going through and they retaliate and they're just like, why are you being so aggressive? Why are you so angry with me? They don't hear you, they hear their own anxiety.
They're hearing their own ways of how they deal with this. Like, a lot of people want to internalize what they go through. And that's, it's a coping mechanism, because we all need to get through our day, right? Something will happen. We just need to cope with it. We need to get through it. It's fine. It's whatever. But for other people, that was actually a really bad moment. I want to speak to that. That was actually serious. And even for me, being a person of color, there are, in the black community, there are times when I am loud and quote unquote ratchet, like, whatever. She got hers. Look at her get hit by that fucking train again. Me last night getting hit by a train in Resident Evil 6 multiple times.
Oh my god.
But like, that's me. That's me. And every time, every time that somebody comes at me for how I present myself in trauma, I always come back to this person and I say, you really missed the mark with me, because you never asked where was this coming from. You never asked me actually how I felt about that.
Nobody
You looked at
asked me. Nobody asked me.
you never gave me power over the situation that happened to me. I always remind people that too. Like, when I'm going through something and you discount me because of how I present myself, that's me going through something. You're having a problem with the way that I'm dealing with it. You're actually not dealing with it. You're kind of dealing with my reaction to it. So, in you dealing with it, you could ask me, where is this coming from? How are you dealing with this? Give me more. Give me more information. If you really want to collaborate, collaborate.
I am not going to name names, but remember how you commended me for calling out that person who said the who used the ableist language.
Mm-hmm.
I presented it to someone else and they came back and they were like, "Are you going to pick fights with everybody on Twitter?"
Not all of us are supposed to get along. Not everybody's supposed to get along with everybody. That's not how the fucking world works. I don't get along with Trump.
I mean, that is a bridge that I was willing to burn because he's just
If you're gonna get out and fight with everybody on Twitter now, I mean,
not not
that's
not
that's
not
such a that's such a phrase for me, because I'm like, I'll get in a fight with you if you want me to. I got time and spoons today. I got spoons.
I'm like, "Come on. It was the fact that they were using someone I admired and maybe that was a justification on my part to like I didn't even go at that person. I was trying to engage them. Yes, I quote retweeted them and put them on my feed, and I was like, hey, don't do that. It's ableist. Like, don't do that.
And and also, this is like a really thing that I wanted to point out too. That person, in the way that I call these terms, that was gaslighting. What they did to you, like, are you gonna pick fights with people on Twitter now? Like, that's gaslighting.
Uh?
Because for me, no, they tried to gaslight you. Because for me, in that situation, I would say, hey, I was actually trying to correct a wrong. Like, this person used a really offensive word. Why are you not supporting me in that? Where actually do you lean on this now? Because now you're actually being indicative of what you feel about this. Are you complicit in the person's, like, in their, like, trashiness? Because that's what it's giving. You're defending a trashy person and how they, like, presented themselves to the world, and the offensive things that
In
they
this
do.
person's defense, they were not defending that person's behavior.
Okay.
They just didn't appreciate the fact that I was being so aggro, if you will.
And like, but also at the same time, it's like, you said what you said. You said what you said, and it was valid. And when it comes to like being on the quote unquote right side of things, the way that people first react to
Well,
certain things is actually how
I
they
have an insight there. I have an
what.
insight there.
Okay.
Doing nothing is also a choice.
Doing nothing is also a choice, because people are allowed to do their own raising and all that sort of. But
I
it's
mean,
also like,
to make no decision, one could argue either they don't have the bandwidth or you're being complicit with what they're saying. So that's always a thing to take into
and
consideration.
I come from the life of, like, many slogans and anecdotes and things. And my brother, this is the only good thing that has come out of my brother and our relationship, is that he would always say, in regards to race, if you're not a part of the solution, you might potentially be a part of the problem. you know and
Which is why, I was talking about the performative allyship where people just
hmm
say, I'm against racism. Okay, how do you actively challenge racism in that case?
how are you actively showing up? How are you making it a safe space? Because there are people out here looking at you when people say things like that, the performative allyship. How are you making this a safe space? And the thing is, when people are looking for safe spaces and they can see the performative allyship, they know it as soon as they see it. you know every time I would look on Instagram and I'd see somebody, like, holding up a sign in the middle of a Black Lives Matters march, I'm like, you do know you're supposed to be marching right now, right? Like,
They're
Also,
they're
like,
posting a photo of them on like Instagram of them in the crowd holding the sign, not like the actual people affected by.
and also too, if you're an activist and you're marching, a picture of your face is not really good because if the police can come get you and they know exactly who they're looking for, and they can totally. This happened here in New York City where we had people look literally just disappear during
That's
marches.
terrifying.
And these are people that like put up face pictures, like I'm still looking for one or two queer kids, that I haven't seen in a while
Oh
because they just
Jesus.
disappeared off the face of the earth. And I'm like, allyship is never performative. It's just a thing. You just go, just do it. But like when you make it like a performance and like you like, oh my God, look at me doing this cool thing. Like I'm at a bottomless brunch. Sis, get out. Sis, get out. Get out. I do not need flies in my honey.
I I, I think I told you before, right? How when I had my old account and I was still rocking the whole Zagreus aesthetic, and I was trying to mingle with other programmers to try and network, figure out the best way I could, do all that. And then I see people shitting on this black woman for demanding, fair rights, equal pay, all of that stuff. And then all these people are coming at her like, well, you shouldn't burn that bridge, or like, you should be more grateful, blah, blah, blah. And I told you about like that one East Asian guy who came in and was like, yeah, I wouldn't do this if I were you. And then I come at him with my stupid video game profile picture. I'm Zagreus, woo! And I'm like, hey, I am also East Asian. If you would like me to explain to you why we should not speak over black people, I will do that. And I never get a response. Nothing from this gentleman.
It's always, and the thing about anti-blackness that like really, 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 that I really like want to make like drive home to people is like you always have to remember that there's somebody who is not necessarily physically close to you that also needs that opportunity to be great. And I, have the great privilege of being a world traveler. I've been in many different countries. And so in that regard, I think, how many like Cambodian queer children are there that don't know that there's a career in tech for them? Because they don't have access to that tech in Cambodia. But if they came to the US and they were just given, if they didn't know the dream existed and they could get here and have access to the dream, it'd be different. But when you gatekeep, that kid stays in Cambodia. That kid stays there. When you don't give them opportunity, they stay there. How many, this is actually a really good one. How many, and this is me speaking to drag now, in the ways that I can speak about RuPaul's Drag Race because I'm also heavily affiliated with that show. Like, how many Thai drag queens are there comparative to US drag queens? And how does that art form look?
Mm-hmm.
And how many American people don't know that Thai drag queens are actually some of the best drag queens in the world? Some of the best performers of drag come out of Thailand, like much better than some of the US
You're
queens.
all learning, chat.
But but
Congrats.
because they don't have a platform here,
Mm-hmm.
like no one knows they exist. And that's not fair
Right.
because they've worked really hard. And so it would be really asinine and rude. Actually, rude. I'm just going to say the word rude because it needs to set with people. It's rude to gatekeep. It's just rude. It's just so dismissive. It's just so asinine. It's just stupid. It's like you're the
It's that self-interest that tries to demarcate. This is my space. Like, I don't want other people who might be better than me to enter my space.
and that's my thing. I learned this from my mom. My mom being a drag queen, and she would
Mm-hmm.
just be like, "Listen, if there's somebody better than me, that's great. I have something new to learn."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that the way that she said that to me at the time, I was like, "You are so classy," in this competitive sport that I just don't think deserves you. But you're so right. Anytime I think that somebody's better than me in something, I'm also like, one, how are they portraying that skill level? Because there's a way of doing it that can come off very douche nozzle. But also, like, two, like, that's something for me to learn. And even if they do come at me in a douche nozzle, that's me. That's a way that I can take it, learn it, and just make it more relatable and palpable. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna present my way in the way that you did because I don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I can just be good at it.
I forgot. I got sidetracked. I still have not eaten lunch. I can do
Uh,
this two things. I can either eat on camera because that's a thing people do. We can have social distance eating, or we can just call it here, give ourselves a time to decompress from this very, very lengthy call, and save some material for Friday.
Yes, let's save some material for Friday because
Okay.
I'm actually working. I'm actually going to give myself a couple of talking points in the week ahead, and just sort of like have them in my head
Okay.
just in case something comes off. But yeah, Yeah, you should eat. Eat, feed your body.
Thank you to everybody in chat. Thank you again for the raids. Thank you for just like all the support that randomly came out of nowhere. This was really supposed to just be me playing like I can play Hades. Look, it became so much more than that.
I know. I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna stream today and when I'm gonna play.
Oh my gosh,
I
if you
was gonna
do
do.
Jackbox, let me know. But I might do Stardew. I don't know yet. I don't know.
It's either between Jackbox or Until Dawn because I like seeing all these like random like
Ooh.
teenage characters. I'm like, oh my god, Jessica! Like, ow, my god, I ran away from the killer and I broke my foot.
Have you
Like, what?
beaten Until Dawn?
Not yet.
First
I did
blind playthrough?
blind playthrough.
Oh my god, I need to see your reactions. I loved watching people play that game. I didn't play myself because it's too creepy for me, but it's like, oh,
Really, I also kind of want to play the Dark Pictures game, man, Little Hope, because they're cooperative horror games and like
oh
people
my
can pick up like
god.
different characters. And I really want to play it on stream, but I really want somebody to like do the
Oh,
cooperative bit with me.
I'll do it with you, even though I hate horror games. I love Resident Evil 5 and 6 because they're the action ones and you feel kind of powerful. Oh man, I will play the creepy game with you. I think I know the plot, but I will play it with you with my mouth shut. I mean, I
I
don't know how everything plays out, but I kind of like read it on TV tropes like I like to do.
I mean, it's like that classic, like, oh my God, it's Massachusetts, and it's like where we hang like witches. So there's like dead witches like haunting us. Like, oh my God, we're on like a college trip. Oh my God.
Okay, we'll talk later. But again, to everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thank you,
It'll
everyone.
be March 5th, Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. The two of us will be doing more of this, but more specifically anti-blackness in the anime community, and we'll probably go on more tangents. But specifically, we hope everybody is interested in what Christopher has to say about anti-blackness and how we all need to address that before we address anything else. So yeah.
You yay! I'm so excited.
Yay! Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, I have to